There's also another page, basically, that's just my website that looks like this on the table. And I also put out an email every Sunday. If you'd like to receive that email, just call me and let me know and give me your email address, and I'll send it to your mailbox every Sunday about 10 o'clock in the morning. Is Mr. Leonard or the mayor here? I don't see either one of them. If they come in, I'll let them make some comments. Christi Kelly Higgs with Census 2020. I told her I'd give her 5 minutes. She's not here yet. Kevin Coggin is the Executive Director of the Coast Transit Authority, CTA. And I've asked him to be here. And I told him he has 5 minutes to say whatever he wants to say to me. And by the way, I just want to note that this is Vincent Creel. He does public affairs for the city of Biloxi. He has a new camera. If you're wanted in 3 or 4 states and don't want to be seen, you may want to sit behind Vincent where you're standing. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you for the invite, Dr. Paul. First thing, I just want to say we're a public service agency. We work for you. We provide public transportation. In the back is our newsletter, and this is a little bit about everything we do, give you basic information. We provide a lot of different services. We have specialized services for senior citizens. We do for Harrison County program. We take grocery shopping, doctor's visits, day centers. We have work commute. We have specialized services for people with disabilities. We run the fixed route service like you see in any city. We do a lot of that in Biloxi. We're running 3 fixed routes in Biloxi. Pass Road, connecting Biloxi and Gulfport. We have Beachcomber route on Highway 90, connecting Biloxi and Gulfport. And we have the Casino Hopper route, which just runs on the peninsula of Biloxi, serving casino patrons. We get a lot of tourists on our buses and a lot of workers. About 30% of our riders on fixed route bus service are people going to work. A lot of low-income workers that we're helping. So we do a lot of different things. Please take a look at this newsletter. Our website's on there. We have a Facebook page. Look on that. See if there's anything we can do to help you. Don't hesitate to call. You can go on Facebook, ask questions. All of our email contacts in there. You can contact me, any of our staff members, to provide any service you may be interested in. A lot of people don't know what we do. Please look at our website. There are a lot of people with disabilities and a lot of senior citizens in our community that are not taking advantage of our services because they don't know about it. So, again, we work for you. Be happy to help you in any way we can. I want to thank Dr. Tisdale for supporting public transit. He's always been a big supporter of transit in his ward and the city. Councilman Glavin's here as well, too. He supports us, so I want to thank him. Real quick, any questions? I'm probably at my 5-minute limit, so is there any question I can answer? Yes, sir.
What about people who need a ride in times of hurricane?
We do hurricane evacuation. Listen to Harrison County Emergency Management Agency and your local news outlets. They'll announce when transportation is going to be available. You just call us when you need a ride, and we'll take you out of harm's way and take you to a Red Cross shelter. It has to be Red Cross certified shelter because they're out of the flood zone and they're manned up. So we don't provide a ride to just any shelter. It has to be a Red Cross shelter for those reasons I just stated. You'll be okay staying there for several days and well taken care of if you need to be. If you have pets, we can help you transport your pet too. We expect, during a hurricane. Yes, ma'am.
Just a quick question about the disability services you offer. Are those written down anywhere? Are there guidelines or something that we can use to access? Because we have some of that in our neighborhood. Yes. Where somebody's confined and can't necessarily get to where he's going. All
the information is on our website. You can go in there and look. And should be everything you need right there. And if you have any questions, there'll be a phone number to call. We've got 2 different types of services for people with disabilities. One is along the fixed route area, and then we have very, very limited services countywide. We offer a countywide service for people with disabilities. Okay. All that information is on our website. Information's in here. It's coasttransit.com is the website. Anybody else?
That's it?
Thank you, Mr. Tisdale, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Kevin, very much. Some of you are here, I assume some of you are here about the community college proposed road, because there's not been a lot happening in the past year on that, but Jerry Creel is here and can give us an update. I've not heard anything more, but Mr. Creel may have.
Well, the short version is that we haven't received anything. We've had some communication with the community college several months ago. They told us that they're not ready to come forward yet. If I had to guess, I would assume that what they're doing is they're going to finish up the road over on Highway 49 that's going to the Perkinston campus before they come forward with this. But they have assured us that they would make sure there was plenty of notice before they came in. And of course, we'd have to have a public hearing on the road anyway, so that would be announced. But right now, we have nothing. We have no application, and no plans have been submitted. Did you want me to go into short-term rentals?
If you would, short-term rentals, just a little bit about that, but also there's a question with spring break coming up, particularly in Briarfield. You have a brand new apartment complex. I know there's going to be a question or two from that.
Well, and also forward to that is now that RV park heads further south than Briarfield, the actual the side street, Beacon Street. So it's southern, that's southern of where the cops usually sit, because they sit back at my corner in front of my house.
And we have the police here to talk about spring break shortly. Go ahead, Jerry, on
Okay.
short-term rentals.
Short-term rental, the council has adopted some revisions to our regulations. Short-term rental is not allowed in single-family zoning, period. It is allowed in two of our multifamily zones, RM20 and RM30, as a conditional use, which means that in order to get approval, they'd have to go through the planning commission, have a public hearing, and then go to the city council for final approval. And then we allow it as a use by right on the property that's zoned for a hotel. So those zonings would be CB, RB, DT, which is downtown, and waterfront. We also allow it as a conditional use in one of our business zonings, which is in the neighborhood business, which are typically next to where neighborhoods go. So far, we've received 317 applications for short-term rentals. We've actually approved 297, and the others are pending. We get to those as the fire department goes out and inspects the place to make sure that there are no life safety issues. The majority of those are in units like Oak Shores, where you might have 100 of those units in there that converted over to short-term rental. We do have some that are operating, trying to fly under the radar, and we've got those in community court. And we have a new community court system where we have a judge that understands zoning matters, and she's taken a pretty strict approach to addressing those. And so we expect this to, our enforcement to improve a lot. That's kind of where we are with short-term rental. As far as the new apartment complex that you were talking about, not all of those units, there's 30 units.
That was gonna be my question,
Yes.
is how are they, yes, they approved for Frank's U,
For
right?
four
They did never,
units.
that was never addressed, and that's kind of what I need to know as the person living there, and it's literally right there. So I want to know how that's going to be governed, how that's going to be maintained, and what do we do when we have issues? Because you know it's just a matter of time when we start getting into, what if he can't get people out? You know, how does that reflect? We've already had a lot, and Sugar knows this, and several others here, several break-ins. We've got a criminal element in this neighborhood that keeps popping up pretty frequently. We have a huge homeless population over there. So those things where I actually watched the couple behind me before they just renovated those two small ones right behind my house, that had a person that was living there that was not all here, that was letting homeless people come into there and camp in their backyard and do all these things. what do we do for those things? Because it's not my place.
No, well, I mean, that's why.
But it's in my backyard.
That's why code enforcement exists. You know, if there are code violations, most of what we deal with are conditions that involve unsanitary conditions or unsafe conditions. And it's a large umbrella that's included under that. We enforce the International Property Maintenance Code, and it addresses those kind of things. So if you call our office, I'll have an inspector out there that day to see if it's a violation. If it is, we'll go ahead and issue a notice of violation. If they correct it within a certain period of time, then it'll be over. If they don't, then we write them a citation, we take them to community court.
So the next question I have is, and it's been several times now where I found crack pipes and drugs, like empty needles and stuff, either in my yard or stuff between fences, thrown in my yard over the fence. What should be done about those things? Like, I don't know who to call for that. Is it?
Well, the drug aspect of that would be handled by the police department.
Okay.
If it's tied to a short-term rental, one of the good things about short-term rentals in an apartment complex is that it's a conditional use. And what that means is, as long as they're complying with certain conditions, they're allowed to continue to operate. If they start to abuse or violate those conditions, the planning commission and the city council have the right to revoke that conditional use permit, and they would have to shut the operation down.
Okay.
Now, I would make this observation that somebody's got to show cause that they are violating these conditions, and that's why it's important, if these things are happening, to call and report it, to get something on record. And I would point out that some people feel like it's, you know, I don't want my name out there as a complainant or whatever. There's an individual, the citizen's representative, I think is how it's termed. His name is Craig Ross. He's in the Public Works building. If you get my e-blast, it's always in the bottom left corner, his email address and his phone, but you can call and say, I've got a water pipe that's broken. I've got needles and paraphernalia in my yard. I've got noise at 2 in the morning hard to reach him at 2 in the morning.
Yeah,
but,
no,
But you know, you get the idea.
But you
The
know
point-
me, I have no problem
I
with
know.
sending an email at 2 in the morning.
The
if it's
point I'm
happening.
trying to make is, if you don't want your name out there, that's one avenue, just to say, you know, I have some concerns. But when folks not following the rules or guidelines, Mr. Creel needs to have some documentation that, yeah, there's some violations occurring, so that's why you
So
need to
taking
report.
pictures is a good idea.
Yes,
Take pictures and
Don't touch it.
send them to Mr.
Oh,
Creel.
I know, I'm never
Yeah.
touching that
Yeah.
stuff, and
Yeah.
it's happened a couple of times, I
Yeah.
just will not touch it.
we never give names. When we go out to do an investigation, we just go out there and knock on the door and say that we got a report, but we never use names and tell where the complaint came from.
Okay, so can I ask you another question, and you would probably be aware of this, is recently, and Paul knows this, over the last 2 weeks, we have had continuous noise and building
Yes.
again in that RV park, and
Yeah.
it's shaking my house
Mine too.
24/7. I mean, he's not working at night, he's not trying to get away with anything that I know of, but I have not seen a permit, I have no clue what he's doing there, and he has a pool company there. So is he building a pool? Is he closing off the drainage that he's supposed to be
Is that the
closing off?
retention or detention pond?
No, he actually has a permit to put a swimming pool in.
So he is putting a swimming pool.
He has a swimming
Yes,
pool.
oh my
and
I know, I
it-
told
and
you.
it- And it's
I
next
looked at
to,
it
it's
again.
next to the detention pond.
Oh, and I want to thank you so much for taking away my beautiful view of the beach. And so now all we look at is a wall with RVs on top. I love it. I mean, that's exactly why I wanted to move here. Thank you so much.
Any other topics for Mr. Creel?
Yeah, I wanted to mention or ask you about short-term rentals. I wanted to make sure people understood. When you said it's allowed by right in certain places, they can't just open one up.
No, all of them have to come and get a license. They have to come to the city and get a license, and then we actually will check it to make sure the zoning's correct, and then the fire department still has to go out there and inspect it and make sure there are no life safety issues.
So prior to Black Beach weekend, have you found, or Black Spring Break, have you found out about those other 2 homes that are down from me, just over past the duplexes, which are supposed to have a short-term rental permission to use, and they don't, but they advertise it on
Is that the
Airbnb?
Pine Cove apartment?
Nope,
Pine Cove
it's the 2
apartment?
single houses that were just built.
Yeah,
across from my parents' house.
right.
Right. They're literally, there's me and then the 2 sets of duplexes, and then there's a new White House and a second new White House. Well, the second one wasn't used last year, but the first one, they had like 30 people in there.
Okay. We have someone in our office that does nothing but short-term rental.
Yeah.
And he's constantly monitoring the internet, trying to find out, but one of the best things that you can do
Is
as a
when I
neighbor.
see it, send it?
If you see it, because you're the ones that know when there's something that's
We do.
happening in the neighborhood that's unusual or not normal. And if you see that there are people going in and out of there, then we'll go investigate. And we always deal with the property owner on a code violation.
Okay,
Because
'cause
they're
they're
the
not
ones that bear
present.
the financial burden.
Director, didn't we increase the penalties too for violations?
We did.
Want to talk about that?
Short-term rental, a person who's operating a short-term rental without the necessary approvals or licenses can be fined up to $500 per day per violation. So we're serious about it.
And
What was
some
it
were
before?
fined at the last community court meeting.
Yes. It's up to $500 per day per violation. And there were 4 instances where people got fined $50 this time. The judge that we have now looked at this as a first-time offense, said, I'm gonna fine you $50, but she also made them sign a document that said that they would not engage in short-term rental again. And if they do, then I would expect the fines will be the max the next time.
Any other questions of Mr. Creel?
Can short-term rentals be used for long-term rentals?
Certainly. Anything, and the definition of short-term rental is anything under 30 days. Anything over 30 days is considered permanent occupancy, and we have,
Except the RV.
it's not a violation.
Except the RV part.
Well, an RV park is a commercial operation that can operate short-term or long-term.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Creel? Okay, thank you, Jerry. I did see Mike Leonard come in. He's the Chief Administrative Officer for the city. Mike, if you had comments?
I do. I'm here because Christi Kelly, our wonderful, talented city engineer, had a family issue.
So most of you who came to listen to Christi tonight, this is the new Christi.
I've got her notes. I think I know most of this.
Well, right now, it's just opening comments, because I have to say Christi for the very end.
Oh. The long one. Do I have to stay for Christi?
Sure you can.
That kind of sucks.
That's the way the world is.
Well, we've got, okay, opening comment. We have $500 million of work under construction or in design in the city of Biloxi today. It's a very, very busy time for us. The engineering departments meeting themselves, coming and going. And, you know, fortunately for us, some of the ugliest part of the infrastructure work is done. The East Biloxi work is at the point of getting final paving now. The contractor is just a few months away from being gone. The second contract we let, the first one was BFF. The first contract was, if you remember the term BFF? Before FOFO. So we've done what we could with the bad contract. The next contract, the Hemphill Contract, which is, you see working down through the Holy Land. Everybody knows where the Holy Land is. You know, that's where St. Mark's, St. Joseph, refer to that as the Holy Land part of the city. That contract's going very well, other than the bones that got found. It's 2 years now waiting to get the bones figured that FEMA would tell us what we do with the bones. That contract's going very well. You see a lot of it right around White Avenue, Keystler Gate, and so forth. And that they're on schedule, on budget, moving along. Just started a third contract with Jimmy Lane Construction back around Palace Casino and back to the railroad track. All of that infrastructure work is in smaller bite-sized pieces than that first giant contract, so it's not nearly as complex or as difficult for us to manage. So we have not had any issues with either of those other 2 follow-on contracts, and we'll be starting in West Biloxi. The next contract is the St. Michael's Church area, and then after that we move to West Biloxi, and the area down along just coming up maybe 1 block from the beach along Treasure Bay and through those neighborhoods. I can't tell them anymore. I just get to say hi. Glad to be here.
Well, until we get down to the Christi stuff, you can say whatever you want, but if it's engineering, you gotta wait till the end.
I'll keep you in suspense then. Glad to be here. I'm glad everybody's so interested in their neighborhood.
Christi's here.
Yeah.
All right, next we have Christi Kelly Hicks. She's here with, to tell you about the census. I told her she has 5 minutes, but I'll give her 8 minutes, because I know her mother.
Hello, everyone. As Dr. Tisdale stated, my name is Christi Kelly Hicks. I'm a partnership specialist with the U.S. Census Bureau. Before I get started, I have a few tumblers in my car. So I have a couple of the giveaway, and I see we have, looks like a few retired residents here in the room. So I'm gonna ask a couple of questions, and whoever raises their hands and gets it right, I'm gonna give the tumbler out. Does anyone know when the very first census, what year the first census was conducted? Anyone know that answer?
1790. Yep.
17, I know I heard you.
I just got a master's in history.
Okay, and this person is a guy's voice over here?
I really feel guilty.
So that is correct. So our very first census was conducted in 1790. So this is the year that we're going to count the population. As many of you know, that we count the population in the United States of America every 10 years. So 2020 is our year. Next month, we are going to start sending mail out to our residents. We do a count of the population for 2 reasons. We do it to reapportion Congress, and that's going to drive how many congressional districts we have in the state of Mississippi. And then we also use it to allocate funding. Now, a lot of you all may not be aware that the federal government allocates over $675 billion that's going to flow throughout the United States every year based on everyone being counted. So you receive the money and the benefits based off of your numbers, not based off of who needs it. So that's why we need an accurate count, not only here in Biloxi, not only in your ward, but also the entire Harrison County, all the other 82 counties in Mississippi. We want to make sure that we get an accurate count so we can make sure that when they reapportion Congress, that we get our congressional districts, in the redistricting is going to make sure that those lines are going to flow in those communities where the residents are. If you all were residents of Mississippi in 2000, you all probably remember we lost the congressional district. We had 5 and we dropped down to 4. 2020 is going to be our year. It's going to let us know if we're going to remain at 4, if we're going to drop down to 3, or if we're going to increase back up to 5. And the only way we can do that is by getting an accurate count. So what can you all do in the room to help us make sure that everyone is counted in the census, especially within your ward and within Biloxi, Mississippi? We need you all to spread the word, the message. We're only 34 days from what we call Census Day. So April 1st, 2020 is Census Day, and that's the day that we kind of take a snapshot of everyone that lives in America. Now we're going to start sending the mail out March 12th through the 20th. So 95% of our residents in the United States of America, we're going to count over 300 million people in the United States. 95% of those residents will start receiving that mail out between the 12th of March and the 20th. You can start self-responding as soon as you receive that mail out. We have 3 ways that you can self-respond. You can self-respond by going online, first time ever, where residents can respond by going online through their mobile device, through their computer, tablet. You can also self-respond by calling a toll-free number, which is going to be in 12 different languages. And then you can also self-respond by receiving the questionnaire in the mail, and then you'll return that questionnaire back. If you do not self-respond within those 3 options, then between May and July, a census person is going to knock on your door, and they're going to try to recoup that information. So we want to make sure we get our count of the population. For our residents who may have a fear of the government, I want you all, as the voices within the room, you all have family members, you all have friends, to help people understand that the Census Bureau cannot release anyone's information to be used against them. When we take that data is for reapportionment of Congress to distribute the money, and we cannot release your names with your households. We identify everyone by census tracts, and a census tract is a makeup of communities. So between 4,000 and 8,000 residents will sit in a community, and we identify that by the demographics. What's the median age? What's the median income? What's the grade level? How many homeowners? How many renters? What's the ethnicity of the residents? So we can't see who's all in your household. We just see a group of who all lives within your census tract. So we want you all to help us to relay that message that your information is confidential. So someone who may not have paid taxes for a few years, that information cannot be shared with the IRS. A person who may be here illegally, their information cannot be shared with ICE. A person who may have a child outside of their school district. So you may have a child that lives in Gulfport, but their child attends school in Biloxi. Their information cannot be used against them. We all need you to help us, the Census Bureau, make sure that we get a count. We have so much competition going on. We have different cities, different communities saying, well, we have to do better than this area. We have to do better than that area. But we know if we collectively use our voices, in 2010, ask yourself, did you call someone and remind them to do their census? If you didn't, that's okay, because 2020 is here. We all use our mobile devices. For you all who still have a house phone, we all use our house phones. Call and tell someone, don't forget to do your 2020 census. It's so important. It's critical that we get those numbers, because you may not be a recipient of government funding, such as you may not be a person on Medicaid, you may not be a person on Medicare, you may not be receiving SNAP benefits, but we're all recipients of federal funding in some forms of fashion, because we may have a fire station that's within close proximity to our homes. So if you have a fire station between 2 and 3 miles of your home, that fire station wasn't just put there just because that's a good location. It's because the makeup of your community showed that they needed a fire station there. Our hospitals, where they build those hospitals, our roads, our bridges. So I-10 is a federally funded interstate. Highway 49 is a U.S. highway that's funded through federal dollars. Our bridges that we go across every day. Our businesses, how they come within your community. I saw in the news last night that Biloxi's getting another casino. So all of these people want to come into your communities based off of the count of the population. So as I stated, what day is Census Day?
April 20.
Yeah.
April 1st, 2020 is Census Day. If you do not know where to put a person or if they should be on your census form, then if they're in your household on April 1st, you count that person. No matter if that person is a long-term resident, you may have a friend that has fallen on hard times, that doesn't have anywhere to go, count that person on your form. If they're living with you on Census Day, we want to count each person once, only once, and in the right place, because every person that we do not receive on the census form, that's dollars that we're losing within our communities, and then that's also the loss of representation that we may have, because when they redistrict and they reapportion Congress, it's going to start at our congressional districts, but when we release the numbers to our state legislators April 1st on 2021, then that's going to reapportion how those districts for our lines, for our state legislators, and then it's going to trickle down into our communities where they'll start redistricting. So if you've ever had your voting precinct changed, or sometimes your school districts, the lines, school district lines, when you have school districts consolidating, and when you have elementary schools or middle schools or high schools closing, those are being closed based on the count of the population for your children. For you all who have kids and grandkids, nieces and nephews, please do not miss your children on the census form. They are considered our hard to count population. And when I say hard to count population, that means that they are less likely to be counted on their census. So we want to make sure that we get every person that's living and breathing. Our children who are under a year age, if they're born on April 1st, 2020, that infant newborn needs to be counted on their parents' census. So I thank you all for your time. I ask that you all be citizens, make sure that you make Dr. Tisdale look good, make sure that you have the city of Biloxi looking good, and make sure let's represent Mississippi and Harrison County. Our numbers in 2010 did decrease from the year 2000, but this is our makeup year, 2020. And if we don't get it right in 2020, how many years do we have to wait until we do another count? 10 years. So let's get it accurate this census. Thank you all.
You only took 2 breaths and you talked for 10 minutes. Did you want to mention Sugar Stalling?
Yes.
And what her role is?
Yes.
Okay, I tried to make the room, but then halfway in, Dr. Tisdale said, let's speak, so I sat down properly. But anyway, yes. I was going to be, my name is Sugar Stallings, Esquire, and so I volunteered Dr. Tisdale at one of the council meetings that he needed a ward representative for the census, so I volunteered. I don't know how helpful that is or how hurtful, but we definitely just want to, as a representative of the community, a person who's very well known and would love to reach out to the community, we definitely want you on April 1st, wherever you are in the city, to be counted is extremely important for those monetary reasons. And if you're not counted, there will be a numerator that will come out several months later. So I want to engage with your community groups, your church groups, any groups that you have, to inform them about the census. This is an important process, and we want to inform all our community partners and friends. And so I just want to be that representative to help in the community.
And let me leave you with one note. After April 1st, 2020, we will go live, and this is the first time that the Census Bureau, so we'll be able to see in live video who has responded and what areas have not. Now, we won't be able to see what households, but we'll be able to identify the communities based off of the census tracts. And you remember I said the census tract is a makeup of your community within 4,000 to 8,000 residents. So you can go on Census Bureau's website and you'll be able to see if Ward 5, I'm sorry, my apologies. You'll be able to see if Ward 5, what your numbers are looking like. And if your numbers are not where they should be, then Dr. Tisdale can say, Ms. Stallings, our numbers, we need to increase them. What do we need to do to get our numbers up? So if you all have a restaurant, or you may have a community center where you have computers, and you can say, let's set up and offer people the capability to come in and complete their questionnaire on our internet. So we want you all to think of resources once we do go in live, because we want Mr. Leonard, we want the city of Biloxi, we want everyone to do well. So that is a really, really good component, to be able to go on our website and see what areas have responded and what areas have not responded. We have one question.
On the census, are you asking if they're illegal or not?
No, ma'am.
Why?
That question is not on the questionnaire. There are only 9 questions on the census form. And for a typical household, it should not take any more than 10 minutes.
But why do you not have it on there? I mean, we have a house down the street, there's 8 cars in the driveway. You can't tell me there's 8 families that are not living in that house. I mean, nobody has that many kids.
That's a
that drive.
federal policy decision. That's not
Well, I
a
think
decision
it's,
of these ladies.
I
There's
think we
also
need
a
to know
supplement
who's
later
illegal
on
and
that
who's not.
covers
And
that.
I would say the next time we have a town meeting with our congressman, that would be a good opportunity to let them know how you feel about that. Any other questions?
Yeah, if anybody chooses to do their census online and their computer's broken and they do not have internet, they're welcome to come to the libraries, because we have tons of public computers that anybody can use.
Right. Thank you.
There's a question.
Yes, sir.
When were they gonna be mailed out?
The mail out will begin March 12th through the 20th. So by March 20th, all residents should have received their mail out from the Census Bureau. When you receive your mail out, it's gonna give you the website address. It's gonna have an invitation code. Now, let's say you receive that invitation code, you haven't completed your census, but you get to work and you wanna do your census while you're at work. You still can complete your census without that invitation code. You'll just have to manually type your address in. So between March 12th and the 20th, all residents would have received the mail out to respond to the census.
I've heard somebody ask this question, but I really haven't heard an answer yet, not tonight. What about the students out of Keesler?
The students that live on Keesler's Air Force Base?
Well, the ones that are there April 1st, 2020.
So the ones who are housed there during the census, then we're gonna count them through administrative records. So we count the Keesler, the Air Force bases, through administrative records. We count our college students who live in dormitories through administrative records. We're gonna count the nursing homes through administrative records. We're gonna count our prisoners who are incarcerated through administrative records. Now for your military who live off base, then they will count themselves where they are living. But the ones who live who are housed on Keesler or who are housed on the CB base, then they'll be counted on the base.
What about homeless?
Homeless. So the homeless individuals, if they live in shelters, they will be counted in the shelters. The ones who live on the streets, then that's when we will use our municipalities like the city of Biloxi to help us identify what areas, and they will have enumerators that will go to those areas and count those homeless individuals. We are trying to count everyone living in the United States, no matter if you're in a house, if you're in a tent, if you're on a couch, wherever you are, we want to count every individual here in America.
All right, thank you, Christi, thank you, Sugar.
Thank you all.
I do want to just point out one thing. There's a handout on the table. This is my website. I mentioned that I've got an e-newsletter I send out every Sunday. Almost every week for the past 3 or 4 months, there's always been a link to the census with some bit of information, particularly with the timeline on when you can expect some of these things, the mail-outs to roll in and deadlines and so forth. So if you didn't take good notes, or maybe you missed it or can't remember, you're like me. If I get home and don't remember it, I'm going back to, on my website, top right corner, it'll say archives. You can go back and find all the past e-newsletters for the past 2 years. Okay? All right, next we have, Chief Miller's not here, and I can't remember the name because all you people with hair look alike.
Right.
Brumley. All right, Mr. Brumley, we are primarily interested in a couple of things. One is the spring break traffic plan, which has pretty much been the same for the last couple of years, and then homeless concerns, and then I think I saw Mr. Moran back there about the NOLA camera network.
Okay, well, I'm Captain Michael Bromley with the Biloxi Police Department. The good news is I don't have a pop quiz for you like the census. The bad news, I don't have door prizes. So we're going to give you information. You're obviously going to have concerns about upcoming spring break. We're still kind of happy having a nice, successful, safe Mardi Gras, and we got that done with for another year. So I believe we had 5 arrests for Tuesday's parade, and tens of thousands of people on the street. That goes to the plan, that goes to the city and their interest and support in giving us barricades to barricade that route. That is, I've been doing this job since 1997, when we had 3 parades in a day, and you had the pipe walkers alongside the floats at night. So the barricades, that the city tremendously helps us with that. And obviously the attendees, who were pretty much well behaved. So we had a good Mardi Gras. So we're going to spin up with St. Patrick's Parade, knock that one out, and then roll right into Beach Week. So that's going to affect, well, we're talking about the spring break plan. Councilman Tisdale is absolutely correct. We're going to use the same major event traffic plan that we use for every major event. We don't care if it's Scraping the Coast, Cruising the Coast, Black Beach Week, whatever organizers that come to Biloxi and call it when they start these organizations and they have these events. We're going to use the same plan. It's a multi-phased plan. Sometimes in phase 1, you'll never know we were there. Phase 4, we got roads closed and we're rerouting traffic up to I-10. There's always a concern, I'll go ahead and get there, I know there's always a concern at Briarfield and the gate at the Coliseum. We absolutely plan to try and do that just like we have before. It's the 2nd through the 5th this year of April. So that's the Thursday, really Friday, the 3rd through the 5th is the impact days. We all know that good weather on Sunday makes the event last longer because they want to stay around and party for quite a bit longer on that Sunday morning into the early evening. But no, we want to have, we're once again going to seek approval to hire more out-of-town officers like we have in several years past, where we have between 20 and 30 sworn officers from other areas of the state come down, they help us. We house them, we feed them, and then they work, and they man those positions like at the gates in the police car. They try and do a good job, they really do. And it can get an unthankful job.
We love them.
I'm glad, and that's great.
They feed them. Yeah, we feed them.
Really? What time exactly do you bring them?
Depends on what time our party is.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's daytime, sometimes it's evening.
A lot of times they get food, but we take them food anyway.
Yeah, we understand it is a huge inconvenience for the people who live in that event area, we'll call it. And you know the areas I'm talking about, right there north of the beach, in those areas. And we try and put a lot of attention to those areas. And I think we've gotten better in the last probably 2-3 years at that, at helping at those specific neighborhoods. we still want traffic to flow, but you can only put so much flour in a flour bag. You know, you can't just push cars out into the Gulf. So that's a concern with us. Somebody comes up and says, all the time I get complaints from people who say, I was trying to turn and I live there. Well, we tell our officers at every briefing, every single briefing, reiterate, if somebody lives there, you know, they don't have to have an ID that says that address on it, but if they say, hey, I live at, 170 this street, we're gonna try and get you across. We are. That may be impossible at times, and I apologize in advance for that, because I'm sure it'll happen. But know that the mission is to maintain the public order, to keep you, your property, our visitors safe, while still respecting the rights of people to have a party and to congregate and gather in our fair city. So, yes, ma'am.
I do have a specific question,
Sure.
because the dynamic in the neighborhood and the setup in the building that's happened between last year and this year is completely different. So last few years, they've stationed those people right at the corner of Beacon and Pine Grove. They control that traffic there. Sometimes the Coliseum opens for us, sometimes they don't. That's not my problem.
Typically, Mr. McDonald cooperates with us pretty well. We always anticipate, and we anticipate that this year again,
Tell
probably
that to
Friday.
Sugar.
I don't know about Thursday, but maybe Friday. I'm not sure.
But I guess the question is the last few years, those people would come in either on Pine Grove or Briarfield and drive around the loop on Beacon.
Right.
And they would park all down Beacon. Now we've got all those apartments there, and some of them are filled and some of them are not. Is there any traffic plan to make sure people aren't blocking entrances to that? Because they were letting people park. There's no consistency about how they're letting them park. So you might have an officer for 2 days that's kicking them off all the side street parking. And then the third day, they're like, we don't care, it's the last day. And last year, that's exactly what happened. And they were all the way down to Briarfield where the cops sat there on Beacon, and all the way down Pine Grove. They were letting people park in there and in between. So I'm a little concerned that kind of keeps changing and that message is not being sent, that the parking isn't allowed on those streets. And I don't know whether it will be this year because of that.
Street parking is not prohibited just because it's street parking.
But it
Now, there are
says
prohibitions.
residents only
Yeah,
on that
the
street.
sign says.
Well, we have to look at,
Only.
pardon? We could look into that ordinance,
Well,
but
especially where those new apartments are, because I think Paul will commit too, that because they're not full, there's gonna be a whole bunch of parking spaces there that are empty. And you guys are gonna be confronted maybe with a big, huge tow schedule that you hadn't planned from that area. So I just wanna make sure Biloxi PD is aware that situation is an issue.
that's new to me personally.
Yeah, it's a whole new building.
My major is the event planner for the route. I'll write that down as a concern.
Just
and-
wanna
and see if we
follow
can
it,
address
yeah.
that and do a follow-up with the councilman on that.
I'll touch base with you.
Okay.
Yeah, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, before it was not really that big an issue,
Right.
other than the parking on the side streets.
Well,
that-
and like I
that
said,
block off the beach, but now
depending
with
on
the
who the
apartment complex there.
Right, it's gonna prohibit
Yeah,
just the
that's
people that are
gonna
neighbors.
put a hitch in
That's a good
everybody's
observation, that is, that will affect our plan. That can affect where we put our car.
Right, because now you've also got an RV park that goes across Beacon that wasn't there before, and you're gonna be wanting to try to protect people from
They're
going
gonna
and
be trying to
climbing
get on
that
both
fence.
sides, yeah.
Right, and then you've got the Schuler lot there on Highway 90, and in order to get in and out of there for parking, you've gotta get off 90, which means you've got to go up.
Yeah.
But so anyway, I'll
Okay,
get with you.
okay.
You had some signs one time, or the city of Biloxi does, that says no parking. Is there any way to get them around Beacon and Pine Grove and Briarfield
You
area?
talking about the little campaign sign looking signs?
Yeah, that you just stick in the ground.
We usually end up having to buy several of those, several dozen at a
They
time
steal
to
'em?
replace the ones, yeah, because they probably grace a lot of people's garage doors. But we will try and get some more of those and put up where we can. Those were really good in the medians.
Right.
And when we were trying to one lane, we used those kind of signs. We obviously never have enough signage. Never, because the excuse is always, I didn't know. And it's not really valid a lot of times. We know it's not common sense, but.
Money
So city
back,
council
he needs to
funds,
buy
he's writing
some.
checks?
Yeah,
Okay,
he can afford it.
yeah? Yes, ma'am.
Three
You gotta be
things.
confused.
You're a real cute guy. Two, you guys have done an awesome job during the events lately.
Yes.
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
very
Thank you.
proud of you.
Thank you.
Three, we still have a speeding problem.
Sure.
Especially on my street, we have no stop sign, so they come around that corner and then you step on that gas and boom, they're right down at the end of the street before you know it.
Okay, when's the last time we had a radar sign out there?
Forever.
Okay.
I haven't seen.
And then they
I-
And
do
then they
anything
park out
after.
in the
Look,
plain view
you-
so no
you-
everybody sees them.
You like me, so I'm gonna take advantage of this.
I do.
You're not gonna like what I'm gonna say.
No, what I'm gonna say
No,
is
no.
if they don't do something about it,
Well,
if it's
somebody's
70
gonna
miles
get
an
hurt.
hour in
So-
front of my house, I'm gonna stop giving you guys my videos.
Absolutely, we do that, and we need that kind of help, but this is what happens, we get called in for enforcement a lot of times for things just like that, and we'll saturate the area. We have traffic section, we have motor units, we have radar signs, we have all those things the city's equipped us with to be able to inform people before, we don't want to cite them, but we can just tell them and make them fix the problem. You know, a citation, costs people money, they gotta go to court. But when we crack down on that, I can tell you what's gonna happen. And I've done this for 23 years in April. More people who live there are gonna get pulled over and get tickets. I promise. I understand. And I will absolutely put that on our list, but it will happen.
Well, I know I don't sleep at night. I'm like Donald Trump, I sleep 4 hours, maybe a night. So I'm up watching that traffic and they speed up and down all times of the night, early in the morning.
I think at certain times of the day would be more advantage.
Sure.
Because like early in the morning when they're coming.
Going to work, going to
They're in a
school.
rush, they're in a rush, that's,
They're
coming
going
home
to
from
work
work.
or the time they're coming home.
And actually during lunch hour is ridiculous, like there's
And
just,
late at night, because they
crazy.
come down my street.
So 3 times a day, 8 hours apiece?
no, well, that's all day, hers is all day.
I would
Because-
mention this is, because I've been to a couple of other ward meetings, and this is not an issue unique just to our ward.
Oh, I know.
The city would stop
Everybody's
paving these streets and making them so smooth.
Everybody's
The problem
looking for,
is they
People
added
slow down.
stop signs.
everybody's looking for a shortcut to beat the traffic.
Yeah,
Corner of
exactly.
MacArthur and Churchill.
If they would just leave 5 minutes earlier,
Thank
Just a
you.
suggestion.
drive the speed limit, we'd all be better served.
Absolutely.
If they stop.
Okay.
Isn't it a bigger ticket if you run the stop sign?
Moving violation, depending, well, stop sign's pretty much a one assessment, whereas speeds are tiered. 0 to 11 over, 11 to 20 over, and so forth.
But they miss
So
the
it
stop
can
sign and then they're tiered up here.
But the thing is that everyone in the city has the story about if you'll just come and sit by my corner, the
Yes.
city could pay off its
Exactly.
debts. You know.
Are there any other questions about spring break?
No.
Okay, if you would,
almost.
if you go to homeless concerns, I heard somebody, and I know that we have the homeless move. They were in East Biloxi, and from what I understand, that they're now in West Biloxi again, or headed west, and then they'll leave and they'll go east, and I hear 2 things. Number one, there's a guy on a bench in front of
Yes.
Edgewater Mall. Now, the other thing is, and the point is, we're a tourist city,
Yeah.
all right? But also, if I'm a resident, I don't wanna see that, okay? The second thing is, I don't want people I don't know coming up to me asking me for money. Those are the 2 big things.
Sure.
And then you have panhandling, which is somebody asked me,
Every
that's
store. Every store.
different ball of wax than the homeless, but it is, I know we had an issue in Edgewater Estates years ago, here along the railroad tracks, the wooded areas and so forth. But does anybody have any questions about the homeless? It's an issue, and will continue to be an issue to some extent until we have some service area to locate, process, hook people up with resources to get them out of the woods or common areas or the Broadwater property. But other than that, any issues specifically? Here's a guy who.
So is there a plan to do something like that, Paul?
I know that the mayor is working with a couple of entities. I'm not at liberty to really mention a whole lot, but he's trying to pull some things together. And
The
there are a couple.
administration approved, put forward one plan to use the Bluewater School. Council turned it down.
Right, that was, which I thought was a great idea. They were looking at Beauvoir Elementary School at the time. And the council, you're right, the council didn't support it. as a whole, and that kind of fell through. And ever since then, I think the mayor's looking to pull something together, but you need a site, and you can pick a site wherever you want it, and nobody's gonna want it there.
Yeah, nobody's gonna want
Okay,
it there.
but the fact of the matter is, he's trying to get a couple of, I don't know if public-private partnerships is the right word, but there are a couple of entities that have to work together to make some things happen. And I know the mayor's been working on this for several months now, and hopefully it works out and something happens. And then at that point, my guess is that's when the screams will begin. Not in my neighborhood, but the fact of the matter is, I don't think we'll ever resolve this issue, but we can do some things to manage it better. And just from what I know and what the mayor's trying to do, I believe we'll be able to manage it better. But right now, unless something changes, we're probably managing it as best as can be managed under the
I thought
circumstances.
whenever y'all reported, I think, I don't know how long ago it was, that you had just a team that really goes around and documents. I felt that that was at least one step.
It is one step, and it's, sometimes it's a step this way, and
Right.
then like it's a step that way.
Chief Miller would probably tell you he's spending something like 25% of his resources on homeless.
It
He's got
is
a homeless
amazing.
detail, does
The
nothing
call
but
volumes,
homeless.
the
I
homeless
think
detail.
Gulfport said the same thing.
It is a nationwide epidemic, it absolutely is. And our stance is, of course, that, you know, homelessness as the act of being homeless is not illegal. There's nothing that we can do about that. However, I also understand everyone's concern, because you shouldn't have to have the person sleeping on your curb when you get up in the morning to go outside and gets whatever's left of our papers now. Get your coffee and paper. But, so what we use those as an opportunity, please call us. Now, no, we're not gonna be able to arrest the person just for being there and being homeless or sleeping on the beach. But we use those as opportunities for what we call consensual encounters. We talk to that person and say, hey, we got called here, do you mind if we talk to you for a minute? Can I see your identification? Can I talk to you who you are? And to be quite honest, a lot of times they'll say no, and there's nothing that we can do because we're not there for a violation of the law. But a good percentage of the time, they're absolutely cooperative, and we find out who they are. That is part of our documentation process, where we come up with the numbers and say, we anticipate our homeless numbers to be, 300. That's where we get those numbers. It's not a wild guess. It's going to these camps. It's going tromping through the woods and fighting the ticks and the gnats to find where the citizen has reported they see somebody going into the woods north of the railroad tracks, and we try and talk to these people. Our multifaceted approach is we want to make sure that there's not a criminal out there who should be locked up somewhere, who could be menacing you or your family or somebody that comes here. We want to make sure that they stay safe from one another, because there is a huge problem nationwide with homeless crime against homeless, that's never reported to us because they're afraid to, and we try and reunite people. We have successfully put people with their consent on buses with a bus ticket to be reunited with family. We don't have enough of those success stories. And I know you all were recently, there was something in the news here several months back about some northern states that were sending people down to Biloxi with one-way bus tickets. It is what it is. Some of that,
I've seen a lot more lately.
we've heard that, but we try and get people, we try and show them that we're concerned for them. We get accused of harassing them when we stop people. When people drive by, they think we're harassing people. So it's hard to balance the need to contact them with the need to let them have some privacy. Now, when they commit illegal acts, it is absolutely our business. To put it bluntly, if they're peeing in your backyard, you better call us. Please, and that's what I want you to call us. If they're throwing a crack pipe down, walking up, and somewhere, call us. We will come handle business at that point, and then it's not a consensual encounter. Yes, ma'am.
I did observe the guy in front of Edgewater one day at lunchtime. Absolutely take off, walk straight down the beach, and relieve himself right there on the beach.
Right.
So I
That isn't a
know
arrestable
that, I know in
offense.
other areas, I know in Hawaii, there's a huge homeless population. and they have lots of parks. But at daylight, they have to vacate. That is part of the rules of what they do. So, I mean, it's one thing if they're going to do their thing in the woods. It's another thing for this guy to be on the beach and, you know.
And there's very little out of sight, out of mind anymore. There's very little, there used to be large homeless camps in the woods that nobody ever saw. Right? And then that land got cleared to be developed. And then you gotta be somewhere, somebody has to be somewhere, right? And that's where the guy ends up on the bench in front of the
Yeah,
mall.
but he's homesteaded there.
Yeah.
It's not just.
I mean, he's got his whole trailer with him.
Yeah, but before he was there, he was in front of Oakmont Place.
Just be sure to count him on census day.
April 1st.
If he's going and that's public, you know, I mean, I could get arrested for that. If I was urinating in the middle of the.
It is, and he could get arrested for that too, should we get called and now, the problem comes a lot of times, reporting, when it's a misdemeanor offense, the officer has to visually witness the incident.
right.
So when somebody sees it, drives down the road, calls us on their cell phone, and says, I saw it happening, and we get there and nothing is going on anymore, now we can still do the report, but it would be up to the person who witnessed the crime to actually be the one to sign the criminal affidavit to present in court later.
Can you video it?
Absolutely. Absolutely can.
Oh, yeah.
We
Yeah,
use,
that's exactly
we
right.
use surveillance camera footage for offenses from misdemeanors to felony all the time, to include personal footage.
Question. How much of the homeless situation locally, if you can say, has any mental health component to it?
Oh goodness, that would not be a professional guess at all. It would be a personal opinion, an overwhelming majority.
Okay.
Have some mental illness. Very few people. We've had a few through the years who were homeless with money and opportunity and chose to be homeless. Now, I used to live on Pop Spray Bridge many years ago.
Well, I'm gonna be there in a few years.
Yeah. There are a few, but either through narcotics addictions or mental illness, and the two often go hand in hand. But there's a huge percentage of the homeless population that has mental issues.
About 10 years ago, I had this was like a Sunday, like right home from church, and here's this guy walking down the street. And I asked, you know, he looked really confused and tired, and I said, sir, is there, something wrong? And he says, I'm trying to find, and it was like a street over in past Christianity, and I'm in West Biloxi. And I said, well, how long have you been walking? He said, well, when I started, the sun was over there.
Was it an Alzheimer's situation?
Yes.
Silver alert type thing?
Yeah, probably so. I was very fortunate. I was able to walk him right up the street to the fire station at West Biloxi, and they took him in and they called you guys and did a little. Hopefully they found where he belonged.
Yeah, brag on some of our people. Just a few nights ago, we had a similar situation where an elderly father was missing, and our officers on midnight.
This guy was from like Illinois.
Well, these were local Gulfport.
Yeah.
And our officer went all around. We called all the agencies, got the guy on the phone, and we're talking to him and saying, hey, honk your horn in your vehicle, because he couldn't understand what street he was on. He didn't know which direction was what, didn't know where the water was. So the dispatcher told him just to honk your horn. And he was in a ditch in Gulfport, I believe. Not injured, but he just was honking his horn. And so we called Gulfport. So then they said, hey, there's a guy in a ditch honking his horn. So we took the complainant, the reporting person's son, adult, over to Gulfport and reunited him with his dad. And it was a similar situation. It was Alzheimer's, I believe. But I just like to brag on that particular call, because that's just something where these guys were not just writing tickets. That was a huge,
What I'd like to do, because we're starting to get a little bit far afield. Thank you, Captain Brown.
Absolutely.
Any other questions about the homeless? Good.
You're very welcome. Very welcome. Absolutely.
Is it Detective Moran?
Lieutenant.
I've asked Lieutenant, you say Moran or Moran? Either one. Lieutenant Moran, for those of you who missed the last ward meeting, he spoke, I think, briefly about the NOLA camera system, and I've since had a couple of people ask me about that, so he's just going to give you quick overview, and then if you want to be a part of that network, he'd tell you how you can do that.
Thank you. We were here in September talking about Project NOLA and our Biloxi Community Crime Camera project. So for the folks that weren't here, Biloxi entered into a public-private partnership with the Project NOLA nonprofit organization, which is located at the University of New Orleans. And what that partnership provides to us and provides to you, the community, is the opportunity to obtain subsidized surveillance cameras for your home, for your business. And in our case, we're using it to supplement our community crime camera project. So we entered into a phased approach in September, and since then we've near completed our first phase. We've outfitted our leisure district. We're starting to move west now into our second phase. If you've read the news lately, you saw that we were awarded a Department of Justice federal grant that's going to help us increase some of our cameras up north also. And so we're moving very quickly. And just about 5 months we've been able to, we've got about 20 crime cameras up right now. We'll have 35 by the end of the budget year. And then not counting what we put in place from our federal grant, we expect to probably have about 100 crime cameras up throughout the city, and that includes east, west, and north, and then up also in Woolmarket by next year. Some of those crime cameras are going to be specifically for pan-tilt zoom. Some of those will be license plate cameras that we'll use. For example, we talk a lot about Mississippi Gulf Coast spring break and what a hassle that is with traffic. One of the ways we can mitigate some of those traffic issues is by using our crime cameras to track our traffic movement, so we know specifically where we need to mitigate some of the traffic issues. If you remember in years past when we've gone to diversion, it was an all or nothing event. We had to lock all of the intersections down. We pushed all of the traffic out of the city. But if you've noticed over the last 3 years since we've been we partnered with the Department of Transportation, use their traffic cameras, we've been doing a phased approach, whereas we can specifically identify intersections that need to be mitigated versus other intersections that don't need to be mitigated. And what I mean by mitigation, put them in flashing mode, put an officer in the intersection, lock up traffic, and just keep it moving. And so with our community crime camera project, it provides our ability as a force multiplier and value-added resource to the police department, whereas we can have more eyes throughout the city. We can allow our officers, instead of having to wait to be called to certain events, think of a traffic crash, think of somebody loitering in the new pedestrian walkway. We can get that stuff resolved a lot quicker with some of these crime cameras in certain these key locations. Now on the back table I have some statistics from the last 90 days, specifically for your voting board back there. It has a quick write-up on our community crime camera project and our real-time crime center, which if you're not familiar with what a real-time crime center is, that is where we have an officer assigned watching those cameras during operational periods, to where we can, again, act as a force multiplier for officers out in the field. Just to touch real quick, it's got some crime stats on there, and I don't want to get too far in the weeds with crime stats. You're doing real good this period compared to the same period last year. What a lot of people are concerned about are property crimes, obviously, burglaries. Your burglaries are fairly low for the amount of population and area and retail space that you have. You're only at about, I say only, it's about 5% of your total offense types for your area. So that's pretty low when you compare that to the rest of the city. Considering how much retail space you have, that's a big target. The majority of our burglaries are vehicle burglaries, and those are unlocked vehicles. So again, going back to making yourself a harder target, make sure your doors are locked, make sure that your house is well lighted, make sure that your bushes and your hedges and your landscaping is trimmed and away from your house and below the level of the windows. Make yourself a harder target for these property crime folks.
Plant thorns there.
I'm sorry?
I said, and plant thorns there.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
No booby traps.
Most of those cameras, are they mostly on like highways and shopping centers?
We have them in the east. We outfit our leisure district, which we have a couple on the main highway. Most of them are actually in the business district, where we have a lot of pedestrian traffic. Out west, we're moving to the major intersections because West Biloxi is more vehicle-centric versus pedestrian-centric. You know, you have Pass Road, Highway 90, you have a fair amount of pedestrian traffic, but the majority of your traffic in the west is vehicles, people moving from point to point. So that's our focus initially. In the east, of course, we were concerned with the leisure district, with all of our major events have some sort of nexus to the leisure district with a lot of pedestrian traffic. So that was the quickest, cheapest, and highest impact we could make from the very start of the project. When we did our numbers last year for the police department, just in a few months, we were able to contribute to 17 felony case investigations, and we were contributed to the recovery of 9 stolen vehicles. So just in a couple months, that's a pretty good impact for a very, very new program. And again, our only limiting factor at this point is resources when it comes to personnel. We're running into limitations because of manufacturing now, because coronavirus is affecting manufacturing electronics. And we're all going to see trickle-down impacts across our consumer base. So I'm not going to talk too much more. So grab you a business card, grab you a stat sheet in the back that goes into detail about our crime camera project, our real-time crime center. If before you leave, if you want to come up and see some screenshots from Mardi Gras, from the crime cameras, they're pretty neat. You're welcome to look at them. I'm going to stay here throughout the duration, so if you have any questions, I'll be here all night.
Now then, if we have personal cameras in our houses, that does not, we can't hook up with any of them.
Not yet.
Okay.
We're working on that. So that's a big issue. That's a big question we get a lot of times. Is most people have some sort of surveillance, whether it be a legacy system or a new system they just put in their house. And so instead of buying one of the Project NOLA cameras, I always ask, well, can you just come take the footage from what I have and port it somehow? We don't have the capability right now. What we're working on is another aspect to come into the same, another data feed, if you will.
Right.
To where it was originally focused as a business-centric project where businesses could voluntarily provide data on their surveillance systems that were covering public spaces.
Right.
Well, now we're moving into, we realize that private citizens want to get on the act, and they also want to participate in these programs. And it's still early, we're not there yet, we're still in the planning, but the idea behind the project would be that you would purchase some small device that would allow you to port on demand that video to a central server where we would be located at. And so the concept behind it would be, I'm not streaming video from your house, so I'm not eating up your bandwidth or your internet, because we're all paying for our own internet. What we would do is if, I know you mentioned that, we come often and grab.
Often.
Yeah,
So my cameras because of the angles.
So in theory, what we'd be able to do is we'd be able to queue up that specific camera, pull that one section of video off, and we would never have to interact.
Identify, yeah.
So that's something we're working on.
Yeah.
It's not, we're not there yet, but that's one of the things that we're really trying to bring to the community.
They have a drug house down the street.
Well, when you have those complaints, our telephone number and our email address are on top for the criminal intelligence unit. Send that information to our unit. You can remain confidential. You don't have to go on a report. We would simply take that information and we would validate it and send it on to the proper investigator.
They're always coming to my house. Everybody's always like, how's it your house again? Yeah, I'm afraid.
Yes, sir.
Well, you were just talking about in the future, being able to take a snapshot of a camera, say at my house. That'll be semi-tricky for you because you could accidentally latch onto a camera that's in my house too, right?
No, in this particular technology that we're talking about, you would designate what cameras you want ported out. So for example, if you had 8 video cameras, you had 3 outside, 5 inside, you would only allow the feeds of those 3 outside to be ported out. And it would be a secure connection.
Would you do it through like our wireless modem?
Actually, it would go through your residential modem through the hard line to a server. It's just like if you're watching Netflix or Hulu, Amazon, it works the same way.
So we're not there yet, but we're
not there yet. That's our target for our residential population. Our business customers are really more interested in the Project NOLA cameras because of the higher capabilities they provide, and it's a hands-off approach. They really don't have to do anything. Essentially, if they buy the equipment They pay the server fee. We can provide some guidance on where to put the cameras, on who to contact. We have a list of businesses in the area that are willing to come in and do installations, that you're free to contact whomever you wish. But you know, as the police department, we're very interested in promoting this crime camera project. So if you would like us to come to your property, just to do a walkthrough to give you some ideas, call us. We'll come out anytime.
Lieutenant Moran will be around, he said, at the end of this meeting if you have questions. Mr. Leonard?
Yes,
The
sir.
moment you and everybody here has been waiting for
I doubt it.
has arrived.
I got a short list, and I'll just talk about what you're interested in. Pops Ferry Extension. Anybody want to know about Pops Ferry Extension?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Pops Ferry Extension, as you know, is the roadway to be built between Pass Road and Highway 90 there by the Coliseum. Virtually all of the property has been purchased. We still have a couple of appraisals that we got to close on and have to do with the Coliseum. We actually having to buy land from the Coliseum, if you can believe that. Over $1 million worth of money going to the Coliseum for their land. But anyway, the land is essentially all bought. Within a month or two, it'll all be bought, and we'll own all the right of way. We applied this year for a grant called the Builder Grant that comes out of the Department of Transportation in DC. So it's federal money, $12 million to build the road. The design is essentially complete. Our arrangements with CSX for the crossing have been approved. The crossing's been approved by CSX. So we're ready to go. We're literally a month or 2 or 3 away from being able to start the project if we had $12 million. Unfortunately, only 2 builder grants were awarded to the state of Mississippi this year, one to Tupelo and one to Gulfport. So we're having our debrief this next week with the Department of Transportation, and we'll try again this next year to get that $12 million. We had both of our senators, Congressman Palazzo, all 3 of them piled on big time with the Department of Transportation to try and get so we had plenty of political support, but just fell a little bit short. It's a really good project. I think we've got a high hope of getting the construction money and starting the project next year. So that would be a 2021 start and a 2022 end. Of course, that's only the first step of a roadway that goes from the beach all the way across Pass Road all the way up to 67. The Pops Ferry Bridge is a tough one. That's a $125 million project. We've been working on it for
10 years.
I used to say since Christ was a corporal.
We'll be done before it's done, right?
You remember that one? Since Christ was a corporal? So, another Marine in the crowd. But a long time. The environmental impact study is at MDOT for waiting for final approval. We had a message just yesterday saying that they had everything they needed. They were going to approve the environmental impact. That includes the alignment, the approval of the alignment of the road. And most controversial is the alignment on the other side of the bridge where it goes across and makes the turn and up past Margaret Sherry. There are 69 houses that will have to be taken. You can imagine. And next time you drive it, just notice how many houses on that street are for rent or for sale. This is a problem that we're really worried about. We got to move.
Are you talking about on Pops Ferry?
On Pops Ferry.
Oh, you're gonna widen that?
We have to widen it to 4 lanes because the bridge is going to be 4 lanes, 2 each way.
That's a long range.
So that's, well, we talked to a company this last week called United Bridge that said they could build it in 2 years, but it would be a toll bridge. I don't think that's going to sell here. When Gulfport just got a bridge for free, Cal and Lorraine, we should have to have a toll bridge at Biloxi. So I think that's a non-starter, but that's going to take a lot of federal money and/or a terrible storm again to get us a bridge. But it's moving ever so slowly, and so that's the other half of that. The next one on my little list is the Eisenhower Crossing. This one really upsets me because I personally have made calls to CSX. My engineers made calls to CSX. It's a simple job. They just need to be able to clean out the asphalt between the rails and redo it. And as of just a couple of days ago, they claim to have already done some work, which we know is not true. So, I mean, we're really trying to press these guys pretty hard right now. You saw all the work they just announced all up down the coast. We're saying after all the calls we made, and you don't include us, what's the deal?
Okay, just a minute, you passed over the Oakmont
Okay, Oakmont, that's Oak.
demolition of those, are y'all gonna go ahead and demolish those?
Okay, Oakmont demolished. Now, let's see, there's probably 4 properties that are vacant right now.
No, there's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
They're all vacant, or are there people still living in them, or they're already
They're
sold?
vacant.
Okay, so this is an 80-20 match job. If we tear them down, we pay 100%. If MDOT approves our contract, the contractor to pay them down, then we pay 20%. So we're hung up with MDOT right now. We submitted the draft request for proposal to MDOT. They sent it back to us and with changes, we sent it back to MDOT. It's another bureaucracy that's very upsetting. I keep telling MDOT that it's a safety issue. It's a safety issue for the neighborhood. You've got homeless issues, people breaking in. We can't protect the neighborhood if we can't get these houses down. So they finally said, all right, we'll let you pick, you don't have to use our list, we'll let you, this last week, we'll let you pick your own demolition company, but we needed one more cycle through to approve your request for proposals.
But it's the
So we're
city's
gonna-
responsibility to keep the yards in. Am I
It
right?
is, and Public Works they've got a list
I
of the
mean,
ones
yeah,
that are vacant.
they've been coming through, but now then there's so many more.
Well,
And
I'll
here
ask you.
comes spring, I mean, you
Well,
know.
they're supposed to once a week. They're supposed to once a week make a pass through there.
Okay.
I'll have my card back there too. You call me if you.
Yeah, I need your
an
card
issue.
because I had an issue before.
That's Oakmont, so I didn't realize there were, last time I looked, there was only 4 that were actually vacant. Some were,
No.
we owned them, but the people were still in them.
Okay, but everybody's moved, except there's still 2 y'all don't have yet.
Okay.
But everybody has moved except for those 2, and y'all don't have those because they're taking them to court on that. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4,
And driven the neighborhood a bunch
5,
of
6,
times.
7, 8,
Yeah.
9.
This is one of
8 or 9, but anyway.
One of my, again, sometimes we get wrapped up into issues with MDOT and.
Oh, sure, but if
If
I know
it's
they're
their
supposed
money,
to
yeah.
mow those yards, I just worry about those yards.
He talked to you about Craig Ross, cross@biloxi.ms.us. If you want to do an email.
You got,
Oh.
you get a copy of the agenda. It's gonna be under the reminder
Oh, is
at
that
the bottom.
yours?
That's a customer relations place. You
Oh,
call
okay.
him, he will issue us what's called a service order to the grounds crew, and they will do a work order.
Yeah.
They come out and do it, so. Thanks for reminding me. When I talked about getting all the land, that's what I was referring to.
Yeah.
I think the people that got paid went away happy with the money they walked away with. But many of them were rentals, actually.
Only 2 people were homeowners that y'all took, and one of them passed away.
You have a question?
Because we took it. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Question in the back, Mike.
And she got real sick.
Yes, sir.
Did you finish with the Eisenhower crossing?
Well, I don't know what I can do short of going and strangling the guy in Jacksonville. We're calling them once a week, telling them how bad it is, and they need to come fix it. Working with CSX is like working with a gorilla. They just don't want to listen to anything. We've got 2 or 3 different issues with them right now, including trying to close the crossings. They have to make us close 3 crossings to get 1 new crossing. But we'll make that call again tomorrow. And Councilman Tisdale, you probably saw him on TV day before yesterday talking about the Eisenhower crossing. Hopefully the CSX guys will watch him. We'll just keep pressing them. I mean, it's a day-long project when they decide to do it. I don't know what the holdup is.
Well, they're gonna have to put a crossing there on your Pops Ferry extension.
That's right, yeah, and they've approved that. They've approved the crossing. So that was the 3, we had to close 3 crossings to get it. And the 3 crossings which we're getting ready to do is all down in East Biloxi. Down in East Biloxi, we have 21 crossings between Keesler and the Point. It's like every block practically is a crossing, many of which are unguarded, and we have a lot of accidents. So for safety reasons, we really need to close a bunch of those crossings. But we agreed with the city council that we would not close a crossing until there was a parallel roadway that allowed somebody to go left or right to get to the next street. So the roadways, we actually opened bids on the roadway today, and we'll award that next week. But in the meantime, the first 3 are ready to be closed: Nixon, Dory's, and the line. I think of those 3.
Saenger Theater?
Saenger Theater.
This one was, God, I've been working on it since the whole 3 years I've been here. We started out with community development block grant money from HUD. To this, what we need to do to the Saenger Theater is we need to take the fly tower off, which is the high part over the stage, put a new roof on it, build it back, put a new roof on it, re-roof the place, put a new air conditioner on the roof, and seal the outside of the building. That was going to be $2 million. HUD pulled the money, the grant we were going to have, so we started over again. This time we got the council to approve $2 million of our own money as seed money, and we applied for a grant from the Gulf Coast Restoration Fund, and that was approved. The governor's private bucket of money for another $2 million. So we got $2 million with a $2 million match. Next week, the scaffolding will be going up. We've been working in the alley behind the Saenger where there was a bunch of water lines and power lines and so forth, trying to get that cleaned up before we could start. But once that scaffolding goes up, it'll go. And the contractor has 300 days to finish that project. So what we're planning on doing is awarding a contract to a professional theater management company to run the theater and to bring in shows and give us, say, 10 days a year for, you know, small city events and so forth, and actually get something going. What else is on my list? DeBees Road.
North of Pass Road.
DeBees north of Pass Road. The road's a mess. It's an absolute mess. Sorry?
Has been.
Has been, okay. As you know, the city line goes right down the middle of the road. Gulfport owns to the west, we own to the east.
And you gotta get Harrison County involved.
And Harrison County should get involved. I personally wrote, Mofo signed, a letter to Billy Hughes and to the Connie Rocco, asking them to pitch in and split the cost of fixing the road with us. Now, until that construction is finished, the construction of the college, we probably throw in good money after bad, but they're getting close. And once that work is done, we need to pave that road. We need to mill it down and pave it. And we will continue to remind Gulfport that they haven't answered our letter. You know, it's really just not right for this to fall on Biloxi. So, but we're gonna pave, if I have to, I'm gonna pave.
The road is ruined.
Huh?
Where the construction is, the road is ruined.
That's where the worst is. If I have to, I'll pave the eastern side of the road, just to show them. But it's really just unsad. We just can't get Gulfport to answer us.
Is the college not responsible? I mean, they're the ones that basically have ruined the road with all that construction. I mean, I live right there and have to, that's my way in and out of my subdivision. And I mean, that's basically where the college is.
That's where we're hoping that the supervisor,
So, you know, why aren't they not involved also?
Well, as you know, the county gives a lot of money to the college. It's one of the major supporters of the college, and that's one of the reasons we asked the county if they would do their share. I think we can all pull together, we can get this done pretty quickly. Now, did Jerry Creel talk about the alternate road, the new road?
Yeah, basically, we hadn't heard anything else. His comment was, as soon as his thinking was, when the community college is done with their entrance off 49 to the Perkinston campus, then they might come down and look at it.
So someday there will probably be a road paralleling the back of Edgewater Estates and into the college. But someday they have to come to the Development Review Committee. Someday they have to go to the Planning Commission. Someday it has to be approved by the City Council. So the college can't just build that road.
Good. Glad to hear that.
Churchill drainage we talked about. We have not talked about it. Basically.
We have not, and let me set this up. If you're interested, and that's what you came for, is to hear about the Churchill ditch. I know I've dropped flyers in several mailboxes just to be sure that you knew of this meeting tonight. My original thinking was, and it really pushed to have, the road repaired and resurfaced, which it was. And then after this real heavy rain, my thinking was just pipe the ditch, be done with it. And after this heavy rain a couple of weeks ago, I went out and shot videos, and it's a little more complex than that. And anytime you pipe this ditch, then it's going to restrict, the capacity to move water is reduced. And you've got drainage off of Brighton Circle, and you also have drainage off the east side of Bay Vista. Churchill Road that goes into that ditch, and the water can't drain if the ditch is already full. So my
Back to square
thinking
one.
was, I don't know if we want to put a pipe there, or do we want to put an open culvert? Because that you would put some backfill behind to maintain the road bed, but also as property owners on Brighton Circle and the cul-de-sac there, your property's eroded. And every time they clean that ditch, I think the property erodes a little more.
So we've got the money to pipe it, we were actually ready to start. But now we're all scratching our head thinking maybe that may not be the solution.
Well, the last thing I want to
do.
do is make a situation worse. So, so I'm here to hear anything. Harold, you have a question for the engineer?
We only have a question, I just have an input a little bit, maybe, piping I think would be a disaster, because the water's not gonna flood. That ditch, is pretty deep, and get a heavy rain, like Paul said, it fills. It's strong current.
So if we improve the ditch, what we need to do is do some sort of like concrete sides to it or some kind of stabilization.
Down toward the park, you know, you look on the east side of Churchill, we've got a deep ditch and cemented on each side, which prevents erosion, excuse me.
Well, good news is we've got the money to do it, just gotta figure out what to do. So it'll happen this year, whatever we do.
Don't pipe it.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Back here.
My yard's probably the worst of it.
Yeah.
I have to actually have a drain that's in my driveway that goes up out in my backyard into the ditch, and the surveyor came, he said, he was a little concerned with what we would have to do, which I would have to have that repiped or even torn out.
Okay, well, again, back to square one, but we'll move fast, and it's not something we're waiting for money for. It's in the budget.
But if you really have a comment or a question, now's the time. I really want to hear from you, because although Christi's not here, she and I have talked quite a bit about this, and I want to be sure everybody's on the same page and we know what the pros and cons of these things are. Yes, ma'am.
Right across Peninsula Park, there's a large
Concrete culvert on the east side of Churchill that runs behind Linwood
and
and
it was put
Bay
there
Vista.
to prevent the erosion.
That's not the deep side.
It's almost like a U.
Yeah.
Goes down.
Half a pipe.
Exactly.
Half a pipe.
Yeah.
You.
Open pipe, deep pipe.
Yeah, deep open pipe.
Does anybody have a different thought on that or a different concern? Because the more I think about it and talking with the engineer, I'm thinking that's probably the best way to go.
I really have to agree that it is. I'm at the corner of MacArthur and Churchill, and I've been there since 1973. So I've seen 47 years of rain and everything. The ditch right across from my driveway, that runs, it seems like it used to be deeper, but I think what the problem is that it used to be this, and now it's this, the cross section. And it doesn't seem to be holding as much water. The water doesn't seem to be going as fast when we have the heavy rains like he was talking about. But also, when I was a kid, that was just woods over there. And now it's River Place. And back in the day, we didn't care if there was erosion over there. In fact, anybody who bought a house over there, you should come talk to me, because I can tell you whether or not you got problems. Because we knew where all the low spots were.
Your description of this to this is the life of a ditch.
Yeah, but see, the thing is, if...
And what it needs is, it needs to go back to its original shape that would hold all the water.
Well, see, there was also, okay, yeah, and I think that the concrete culvert, if you could make it so that you could keep the water from eroding on either side, the houses that back onto, from Brighton Circle and from Churchill, and once you do that, then you're gonna have to go back and fix Churchill Avenue correctly.
Right, the part of that I'm thinking, if you did something like that, the final touch, putting in a plug here with my CAO, is put that sidewalk we really need there along
Okay, now what about
the west side.
What about this? The idea of having
Is this a
okay.
charrette?
Could be. We don't say charrette around here in West
Well, anyway,
Biloxi. That
you've
doesn't
got,
come as good.
let's say that you do the concrete culvert, okay, and then right along Churchill sidewalk with maybe like some sort of metal railing to keep from people from falling in. You see what I'm saying? I'm almost thinking like Los Angeles River type situation. That, I mean, I don't know how much the money is, but.
Well, we got a good start, we'll see how far it goes.
Yeah, but I think that would be.
You got that,
Okay.
that idea down here, Paul?
Sidewalk with metal railing and the culvert. That would
Right,
be cool.
I think the amount,
Then we can film grease there.
There you go, absolutely.
I think the amount that was budgeted for this capital project is about $470,000. It's a little less than $500,000.
So we're not gonna get the sidewalk.
I don't know how far they get you, but it doesn't mean you can't get a sidewalk there.
But I'm saying that would be an idea.
Right.
And, but it can't go on like it's going on, like that. And we don't, where I am, we don't have any significant erosion on Churchill where I am. But you go up to, from Orleans north, and it's just getting worse and worse.
One of the projects, not Ward 5, but adjacent to Ward 5, and an example of where we're heading in West Biloxi is that we're doing $1 million worth of water pipe replacement in the Tanglewood area, which is the area between Jim Money and
That
Pops Ferry.
always floods.
It's very old. The pipe in there underground is got more patches on it than it's got pipe left.
Yep.
And so that million is just a down payment on everything we need to do in Tanglewood.
Yeah.
So that's ready to go out to bid.
But you see, they always get flooding there. I mean, I've been hearing that for 30, 40 years.
I'll finish by saying that now that East Biloxi is nearly done, and now that we've got all this new development and new roadways and stuff going into developments in the Wool Market, you're gonna see Public Works attention shifting to West Biloxi, because West Biloxi has the oldest infrastructure in the city now.
That's true.
And we're gonna have to really, especially underground, so we're gonna have to do something.
I remember when we
But all of the councilmen are sending me notes about roads that need to be paved. And guess what? We've got some more paving money. You've been here reading about it for a while. Internet sales. Remember all the states are supposed to start getting the internet sales money? So you buy things on the internet and the sales tax goes in the nobody collects sales tax. Well, now they're reporting their sales tax. The sales tax is coming to the state, and the state twice a year will give us a dump of money that can only be used for infrastructure, in particular repair of infrastructure. We got our first $200,000 last week. So that's just coming, manna from heaven actually for us.
I'd do a sidewalk on
We
Churchill.
think that'll just beginning, it will grow. We think it'll end up being about $1 million a year before it's over.
Is that ceasefire ripping up roads?
It's C-Spire, it's AT&T, it's the gas company.
Are they gonna come on every road in Bay Vista or just the main ones?
I think they're gonna be pretty much on every road.
if they've already been down MacArthur, or they went on MacArthur on the south side, and.
There's so much of it going on, I can't tell you, but we have a guy that does, every time we have a problem with them doing something, we shut them down until they fix it, and then we turn them back on again.
Well, they got those
So
little.
there's three different concerns that are really.
Centerpoint went and put all the little flags in everybody's yards, and I want to take up the flags so I can mow my yard.
Can you remember to put them back?
Oh, okay, so that's what I gotta do, okay, all right.
I think you guys are probably ready for supper, huh?
Yep.
Yes, ma'am.
I live, gonna be part of that drainage problem. My house backs up to Churchill, and I have a tree that's growing through my fence, and it's on the city side. And I was wondering who I would talk to about checking into getting that cut down.
What kind of tree is it?
Is it a pine?
It's not a live oak, is it?
I don't know if it's a live oak. I think it's a pine tree.
Don't cut down that maple though.
Same
I love that maple.
He's talking about.
C.
Send us a note, C. Ross at Biloxi.ms.us.
Okay.
One of the problems we have all over the city, and especially in West Biloxi, there's a lot of people's fences that are in easements. They're actually in the easement. And then the trees grow up in the easement, and then now the easement, the water won't flow. But don't know where your fence is. If
She's
it's in
right
the
up
easement,
against the
not-
ditch.
Huh?
She's right up against the ditch.
Okay.
You'd have to send somebody out.
Okay, to look at
Oh, I
it,
got a
yeah.
picture of it, but still.
Okay, so Mr. Leonard's hungry, and he's running for his life. Anybody have any questions for me?
Okay.
Paul will bounce it to me.
Okay.
Promise to have somebody
Harold?
look at it.
All right, thank
Could
you.
you keep us posted on what goes
That's
on?
that's the.
I'm sorry,
that's the
Saenger.
easiest one I had on
Keep
there.
us posted on what's happening.
I will. You get my e-blast, I think, don't you? So I'll always put something in there, always. Randy, did you have a question? Anybody want to be in front of the camera? The new camera? Thank you all for coming.
Right